Thank you so much, our dear viewers and listeners of Smart 24 TV. This is the POLICON program, still going with Professor Dr. George Wilson Kanyihamba. I'm Dr. Joseph Tindyewa, the public policy analyst and management expert, and I'm also an educationalist. And our interest together with Smart 24 TV is valuing education as a pillar of the economy. A lot has gone on, and we continue to handle bit by bit. And in our last session, we would like to look at what has transpired in our country, the recent times. And we are again incorporating together to review, so as our guests come forth, to talk about exactly what happened with the investigation that was laid down by the team that was led by Dr. Abel Rwendile. May his soul rest in eternal peace. He was the member of parliament of Rwanda East, and he also was a state minister of trade, and he also was a UNIDO director. We believe that that report up to date, some people have been asking, did this report be of a help to improve the education in Uganda? Because one of the greatest institutions in this country and in Africa which supports the education sector is Makerere University. Right. And that report up to date, we don't know whether it is considered to be a positively generated report, impactful report that can be of a great use to us, and also look at the incident of the death, recent death of one of the students while in guild campaigns. But let's start with the report issue, and we look at adoption and maybe encouraging policymakers how we can refer to such to be able to help us.
When Dr. Rwendile was investigating higher education, including university in Uganda, he already knew that he had been invited by the president of Rwanda to do similar exercise in the Republic of Rwanda. So he knew I had already done such a work for Rwanda. Mm-hmm. So naturally, he invited me to give interview to that committee of his and asked me what I think they should do. I told him, and as a result, I know very well some of the contents of the Rwendile committee, whom we miss very bad, because when I became a judge of the Supreme Court, he replaced me as an MP for Rwanda County, as you know.
Yes.
Having said so, that report was very, very instructive and important for lifting the values and the standards of education in this country. Mm-hmm. And the whole university of primary education, mm-hmm. of tertiary institutions, mm-hmm. and the further colleges, mm-hmm. colleges for further education. Mm-hmm. It was the late doctor's belief, mm-hmm. that the educational bodies, the mm-hmm. Minister of Education, Permanent Secretary of Education, mm-hmm. Commissioners for Education, should be the ones to propose and control educational standards in our country. Mm-hmm. That was the view of the late Joseph
Dr. Abel Rwendile.
Now, sadly and prematurely, he died before he could release that report and educate us about it, including explaining it to the Minister of Education and the President of the Republic of Uganda. But the fact that he died and nothing is happening to the education systems and the value is evidence that there are very few of the caliber of Rwendile who are alive to advise, and if they advise, there are even fewer to act on his advice.
Mm-hmm.
This is a sad commentary
Mm-hmm.
on the educational system of Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to Oxford and Cambridge,
Mm-hmm.
I taught at the University of Cambridge
Mm-hmm.
and was external examiner
Mm-hmm.
for the Welsh and Oxford examining board.
Mm-hmm.
I know more about British education system than I had known when I was only Minister of Commerce
Mm-hmm.
in Uganda. In my writings, which are not few, there are now 34 writings, books, published books. And if there was a Ugandan scholar who has got the same intelligence as we used to have,
Mm-hmm.
he would undertake to investigate and wrote a book about Kanyihamba.
Mm-hmm.
I am not advertising myself,
Mm-hmm.
but that is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Onyango,
Mm-hmm.
Oloko Nyanga of Makerere,
Mm-hmm.
described me in my book, which he prefaced, where he put forward that Kanyihamba is a legal working dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
He meant a dictionary not only in law but in other areas
Mm-hmm.
I had worked in.
Mm-hmm.
The principal judge, Yoram Bamwini, who just retired, also gave a description of me and called me the greatest legal mind in history.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest legal mind in history. Not in Makerere, not in the UK, but in history.
Mm-hmm.
That has not attracted the scholars to say, who is this? Whom the principal judge describes as the greatest mind in history. No. Nobody is interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
So having said that, I used to be examiner
Mm-hmm.
of Cambridge Examination Board.
Yes.
I used to be examiner of Nairobi University. I was at one time external examiner of Dar es Salaam University. Doesn't that tell you what kind of man I am?
Okay, thank you for that great achievement. But there is something related with what you've said.
Right.
And I captured it from the new vision of today. I believe maybe you may be able to appreciate it or give your opinion.
I can give my opinion because
It is related.
let me tell you.
Yes.
I read all the newspapers.
Okay.
I have told you I'm part owner of New Vision, but I have been reading newspapers, 2 of them, or at one time they were CD, for the last, what shall I say, for the last, for the last.
One of the statements I captured that was interesting is in 1960s and 1970s, there was oral examinations which produced quality of leaders. And some of us who are, I'm also a product of the part of the education system of Obote, the 1980s.
Yes.
And I studied at St. John's Ikumba Primary School.
Yes, I know it.
I didn't go through the current trend of nursery education.
No, neither did I.
But I do think my English is not so wanting.
It is excellent.
And there is a new curriculum that is intending to now change from the previous trend of only doing exams senior 4, senior 6, then university, and take us back in and modify the curriculum which will ensure that there is oral examination. Because one of the commentators in the New Vision of today stated it that our leaders generally, that they are lacking the track, the kind of the skill to be able to read documents and even to speak, orally well, to address issues concerning, public matters. This reform and maybe what transpired, the kind of education I appreciated when I studied from a rural area, which and what is happening now of the private sector where they are investing in education, and a bit they are trying to improve, because all we are doing is citizen economic welfare. How should we emerge to the same level where we will not have any regrets that now we have good products of education, our human capital is developed?
I want to tell you point blank that if we don't change our systems and our way of governance, we shall never achieve once again those standards and the values. This is my very well articulated and learned opinion. We shall never, so long as we have the same kind of ministers and government officials in charge of education, and the president looking on, approvingly, forget forever.
What's what?
Yes. I wanted to talk to him.
Okay.
Forever.
Okay.
The improvement or betterment of education standards or values in Uganda. That is my considered and learned opinion.
Yes, sir.
But I have also mentioned in my book that the President Museveni is now about 80, and when the next term ends, he will be about 85 or 84. And therefore you should talk nicely about his retirement as soon as possible, this month, the next year.
We should talk about his retirement.
This month, yes.
But he still is...
Because he said he doesn't accept he works for himself, and he doesn't act in accordance with advice. He's so he is relinquished the right to be called the president of Uganda. A person who doesn't want advice or act on advice does not deserve to be a president of Uganda. That is the conclusion.
Thank you. Let's consider this as well.
Yes.
1960s, I understand you had already stated it clearly. We had the education, the missionary, red education system. And 1970s, incidentally, that was during the days of Amin.
Yes. Huh?
The 1970s, the regime of Amin, Idi Amin.
It started January. 19.
Excellent. Then 1980, of where, including your friend...
In 1979, I went in Texas in the UK. That's why I got a fellowship at the University of Warwick, and eventually I became a fellow of Oxford and Cambridge universities.
So now, in 1960s, in 1970, what is being recommended by the reader saying that the quality of leaders of the then time under the education system was excellent. We had a system where, of course, I do cite one of your age mates or your close associates, the former Prime Minister Ruakana Rugunda. Yes. And of course, I recall the former Prime Minister Mbabazi,
yes,
who studied from our schools.
Yes.
Our schools, the Kigezi High School, yes, and the Kigezi College of Tovere.
That's right.
Which has lost the glory.
Yes.
And it is painful.
Do you know their curriculum? Is to fight other schools and the girls, trying to force themselves on those girls. They are fighting them.
Nyaruhanga High School, Sesame High School.
Recently we had a headmaster who said, this is your opportunity, boys, to have sex with girls.
Openly?
Openly.
Oh, that's dangerous.
I'm a patron of Nyaruhanga secondary school. So I recommended this teacher should be sacked immediately. He
So
moved for
you are again taking me back. I'm a good student.
yes,
You are taking me back to the issue of integrity.
yes.
So the integrity question is what has led
It
to the
is
collapse.
paramount.
It is paramount.
This is paramount.
And now, going forward,
There's no point appointing a magistrate, a judge, or a teacher who, without examining their integrity, you are not doing a good job.
dear viewers, I'm being educated by Professor, of course, in this analysis, able to understand that integrity is central.
It is
Because,
essential.
because even as we talk about education, you can be educated, you produce graduates. But as you said, if they are corrupt, at the end of the day, we'll have moral decay,
That's right.
which will lead the
You are
country
absolutely right, Jude.
not to develop.
Yes.
I'm getting you.
Yes.
And Professor, I tried to study it through as we analyze through with you, dear viewers, together, that you can have many graduates at home, 3, 5, but if their mindset, which deals with their morals, which deals with their integrity, is poor, still that education will not help. Am I right?
Absolutely right. And I agree with you 100%.
Uh-huh.
Moral content of the educators is very fundamental and a must if you are to appoint them
Yes.
in charge of students.
To be in the charge of students. Now moving forward, Professor, we are looking at finally our education sector in Uganda and East Africa generally
Yes.
to be a competitive, and I'm very deliberate on these words, to be a competitive economic good and service. Why am I saying so? I want you to bear pain or concern with me, where our parents in rural areas, they sell their land, they take, you used to say it, I was there at the Kampala International University when you are making that passionate appeal. Parents sell their land, they come and pay school fees for their children. But the end result of employment is impossible, beside the issue of integrity. And we continue to dig deep to see how we can end this unemployment. Would you have an opinion to share with us?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I agree with the original policy of the educational department to emphasize that integrity is an integral part of educating good students. In the absence of integrity, no one is qualified.
They cannot even get jobs.
They can't, they shouldn't. They can't, they shouldn't.
They shouldn't.
In the NLM, being disqualified in that way, but having a degree.
A degree, diploma, certificate.
We know the NLM, under the NLM, integrity has become irrelevant. Totally.
Don't you think that the introduction of new curriculum, new skills, and if implemented, and already it's underway, will be able to skill our children and maybe feed into...
We'll be in charge of schools and the classes, and that's what. Who? Tell me. If it is the same teachers who now rape students who are of the opposite sex, if it is the same people who are corrupt, then you are wasting your time. Nothing will change. Even if you have the best policy, if it is being supervised and advised by corrupt people, you give them a consideration of 1 shilling, they will not only ignore that policy, but they will destroy it.
Thank you.
Corruption.
Thank you.
So, I want to emphasize.
Yes, sir.
Museveni has said he doesn't want us anymore.
Really?
Yes. He said he's no servant of anybody.
No, but
He said it publicly. I am no servant of anybody. Secondly, he has said, I don't need any advice from anybody. Then I have said, Kanyama, a person who says those two things has forfeited his right and the power to be leader of Uganda. So having said that, what is the next? We must talk about his retirement immediately.
Immediately.
And we should ask him to retire now. because of those statements.
Will it be retirement or
Second, no,
resignation?
you hold on.
Okay.
And when he does, we shall discuss seriously who is to succeed him.
Okay.
There is one person who has already indicated that he wants to succeed Museveni. That is his own son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba. Kainerugaba is the name of his uncle, who used to be a close friend of mine when we both lived in Entebbe at Windsor Hotel. He died driving back to his residence, going to Kampala at the White Babylon. I regret him. I regret his death. His own nephew, Kainerugaba Muhoozi, who was called after his name.
This time, let me come on this question.
As he said,
yes.
I have a group of people who are ready to take over from my dad immediately. So let us, if you don't obey Kanyamba, let us respect the views of Muhoozi, who wants to replace his father immediately. He's not in agreement with his father on the policies towards the government and the people of Ethiopia.
We are going to be concluding.
Okay. Whom Museveni respects, but this younger man respects the opposition to remove that government. That is a kind of mess and the confusion we are in today from our leaders.
Let me ask a question.
And you continue keeping quiet.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Your views are very well heard. I didn't want to go into this, but allow me to go into it.
We'll do in every
Let me ask you.
Yes.
Now as an elder, and you know most of the very productive Ugandans.
Yes.
Let me talk about, since you have been talking about it.
One
second.
No, wait. I will talk it freely during the day, during the night. If you obey my orders, let us talk about the retirement of Museveni, because we cannot retire, or I know who is to replace him until he retires.
I want now to ask you, who are the first three people you could recommend that they can be good presidents?
There are about 40 million Ugandans, each who can qualify to be a president if they have integrity. So let me mention.
Okay.
One of them is Honorable Bigombe.
Oh, Honorable Bigombe.
Honorable
Bigombe.
What is the other name?
Betty Bigombe.
Betty Bigombe.
Oh.
The second one is my good friend, Right Honorable Kadaga.
Oh.
He's also qualified to be president of Uganda.
She's qualified.
But they are also a bit elderly. So we could make them compete with a younger person. Somebody like... You want me to mention the name?
You are free, because you said that we discussed it.
Like Alex Wavamuno.
Like Alex Wavamuno.
He's a younger man in his 20s. I don't mince words. I don't fear anything.
I thought you were going to mention me. It's okay, it's fun.
You know why I haven't mentioned me?
It's okay.
Listen,
yes.
You know why I have mentioned you? I haven't. Because you fear the NRM and the Museveni, and the people who are fear in my books don't qualify to be president.
So you've seen me as a fearful man who comes here and...
But you would make a very good minister.
Really?
Of either education or information.
Okay, finally, talk about the death of our children at Makerere. We are concluding our program.
Yes.
And we went to that direction for, by the way, our discussion is still about education, and we want to conclude on this matter. Our education should not be institution of higher learning. There are two challenges that I am condemning. These rampant, strikes, where our children go to school, to universities and so forth, they are unable to study. Isn't there another mechanism to prohibit that? Because I can go into quantification. The moment a child, our children, they go to school, the students and spend 1 week, you consider what a loss in the economic sector. 2, the moment we have what they are calling guild elections and you hear a death of that student who would have maybe become the next president of Uganda, it's a great loss. What is your fundamental recommendation?
This is one of the saddest and annoying incidents that has happened to Uganda in recent times. You know, President Museveni used to call me, he's this troubleshooter. And when soldiers, and rather soldiers killed, were killed by tablets, by unruly tablets, he invited me to go and solve the problem. And the story of what happened is written in my books. I solved the problem. He continued calling me his troubleshooter until he ruled against him in the case of his nomination of Justice Odochi becoming for the second time at retirement another Chief Justice. I defeated Museveni.
Is it related to student strike, how we can curb down this violence in universities? Yes.
Let me tell you.
Okay.
We can Museveni supports violence.
Really?
Yes. Don't you know? You don't ever listen to what he says. I have told you, he doesn't listen to advice anymore because his other name this term is Tibuhaburwa. You are a minister, you know what Tibuhaburwa means. Why do you say we should be giving advice? Or his means of education?
Should we say that is the root cause of that violence at the university and strikes?
I am giving a background and then answering. Museveni didn't cause it. But the system he has tolerated caused it. The NRM has been torturing its, the opponents of its supporters. So learning from him, they are stupid, these students who killed one another. Learning from Museveni does it, so why don't we do it? That's why they're doing it, because of Museveni. You don't know that?
Professor, when I ask you this, you will again asking me, tell me another thing. But it is, you know, it is an exciting time with you. And some of the untold story that you tell us here, they keep our viewers continuing to ask themselves a number of questions, and basically with an interest to see the end of this. I believe we will continue. I will just receive your final.
You always give me the final one.
Yes, please.
So let me repeat, so that next time you call me what you have done. I have recommended that because President Museveni doesn't respect us anymore as his masters, and he does the opposite of what the Constitution says, we should ask him politely to retire now. So I want an answer next time you come. The next time thing I've said, let us discuss his succession to the presidency. However, one man who is quite honorable and brave has already shown us the way. He will be the next president.
Who is that?
That is Muhoozi Kainerugaba.
Okay.
The nephew, well, the son of President Museveni.
Okay.
He said he has got a team ready to take over from his dad.
Okay.
He has not said when my dad finishes this term or whether he retires. He simply said to replace my daughter. Which means now. Why are other Ugandans, except Muhoozi and me, afraid to talk about the succession to President Museveni or his retirement?
Thank you, dear viewers of Smart 24 TV. It has been a great evening to be with Professor Dr. George Wilson Kanyihamba, and he has given his views, point blank as he says it, and we continue to explore through a number of such a kind of talk which are intending to improve on the economic livelihoods of the people. The education of Uganda, we continue to appreciate the idea that we need integrity and also to respect expertise by those who govern the education sector, education governance.
Hey, but that's,
right?
You have quoted me out of context.
What's
Those
that
things
now?
you have said.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important
Mm-hmm.
is that the president has said he's no longer a servant of Ugandans,
Mm-hmm.
and he has got his own program.
Mm-hmm.
And in that program, there is no education.
Mm-hmm.
That's number two.
Mm-hmm.
The other one you have forgotten
Mm-hmm.
is that also General Muhoozi,
Mm-hmm.
who happened to be related to President Museveni,
Mm-hmm.
has said he's ready now
Mm-hmm.
to replace him
Mm-hmm.
as president of Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
You have not mentioned all that.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly,
Mm-hmm.
you have not mentioned
Mm-hmm.
one important thing.
Mm-hmm.
My own writing, I gave you the book,
Mm-hmm.
that the president who no longer speaks advisors
Mm-hmm.
to govern,
Mm-hmm.
or his citizens,
Mm-hmm.
has forfeited the right to continue governing this country.
Mm-hmm.
Those should be the subjects
Mm-hmm.
you bring next time.
Okay.
But I have also, you have undertaken
Mm-hmm.
that you move it around
Mm-hmm.
and tell me what the people you have mooted with, what did they say?
That's right.
So,
Yes,
so
please.
all that is included in your summary, which I have improved.
Thank you for improving the summary. Indeed, you own the opinion and we own it together as we were discussing, and you have well stated all that it deserved to be well stated.
Yeah.
And until I see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joseph.
Bye.